Hey, we are live and we got another episode for y'all on the FIFA Koballa podcast. And today we got a very special guest. Uh he is the founder of Golz and he has his own podcast, Box to Box, along with GGSK FIFA. And who is the other person that was on there?
Andre
Andre.
Gutierrez.
Yeah,
Yep.
Andre Gutierrez. And today we have Jose Tellez. How we doing?
What's up, man? I'm good. I'm good. It's not the greatest afternoon. I'm a Barca fan, and we just tied against Inter Milan, so a little bit down to the dumps today. But other than that, glad to be here.
Yeah. Glad to have you here. I know first off, you reached out to me about your project goals, and maybe first off, just kind of share about what goals is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And goals, guys. By the way, it's Golz. That's the spelling. It's kind of unique. I think the easiest way I could probably explain goals to anybody. It's a completely soccer focused video content platform. Probably the easiest way to break it down. When I say that to somebody, the typical reaction, and I think maybe you had this too, Daniel, was okay, this guy's building the Netflix of soccer, right? And like yes and no. I think that's a really easy way to kind of put it for people who don't follow soccer or maybe just kind of slowly getting up to speed with the sport. But fans on this side of the world don't really have a single kind of online destination to house all of their footy content, if you will. And so, selfishly, I thought I'd go out there and try to build it. And
Mm-hmm.
so that's what we've done. We've just launched it about a week and a half ago, so it's super new. But if you go to Golz, GOLZ.tv today,
Mm-hmm.
you can check it out for yourself and let me know what you think.
Yeah, for sure. So how did this all start for you? Like, what was your vision before creating this site or this vision you had?
Oh man, selfishly, I will say that like this, the plan wasn't to like try and build something that would go out there and compete with guys like Netflix or YouTube or Twitch or anything else. It really wasn't that. I think where I got the idea was probably a combination of a couple things. One is I only watch soccer content really, and that means a lot of different things. I live primarily on YouTube and Twitch. I don't watch a lot of movies and TV on Netflix or Hulu. It's pretty much soccer as much as I possibly can, live matches, highlights, other types of content. I think that's what slowly got the idea rolling. My YouTube algorithm and my recommendations page is kind of what I want goals to look and feel like, at least a little bit, right? Where there's just all of this different types of content. The issue with YouTube is that it's kind of sporadic and I don't really have control over what I find. Right. So they put what they think I want to see in front of me, like many other platforms out there do. And I watch as much as I can of it. But I always thought that like, man, it'd be cool if there was a website out there where someone like categorized all of this soccer content, right? Based on different categories. So like, maybe a category for MLS, maybe for FIFA, then US men's national team, then vlogs or podcasts or anything else. There's so much soccer content on the internet, that I thought that it'd just be cool if this thing existed. So when I said before, I didn't build this thing thinking it could be some big company or project.
Mm-hmm.
I really built it thinking this would just be cool. I would use this.
Yeah.
And so it was a combination of that and the fact that there are other examples of platforms like this for like really niche communities. Like, I mean, there's plenty of platforms that are streaming nothing but like lacrosse content is the perfect example, right? Very niche sport. I've seen full rugby platforms out there. They're very small and they don't have a ton of traffic, but like these types of websites already exist. And I've seen enough of them where it just surprised me that anywhere that I looked on the internet, there wasn't, this Netflix of soccer. There wasn't like this platform that was just bringing all of the footy content together. There's stuff like FIFA Plus where it's like, FIFA's, houses all of their World Cup matches and all their previous tournaments. And they also create some of their own content, but there's nothing that's like putting, FIFA creators on the map, or these smaller independent media, outlets on the map, or just normal soccer content creators. Like no one is bringing all those people together and saying, hey, look at all of this content that exists. And so that was, I just thought that there was enough of a need that
Mm-hmm.
maybe I can go out there and build it myself.
Got it. And what other sites have you seen that you see like as pretty successful when they created their own niche content?
I think the biggest, so there's a couple things. I mentioned before, like sites like, for other sports like lacrosse or rugby or anything else. I've seen certain projects in my time in business become big enough to where they get the attention of some other very big players in the space. The first thing I think about is Premier League lacrosse, which, but the only reason I really even know about that is because we have an advisor on the Golz project who was a part of that original team. And essentially, there was a small group of lacrosse fans here in the States, and they had kind of some competitive leagues that never really got any visibility. So there was a team out there a few years back who built this platform and a professional league called the PLL, and
Yeah.
that league and all that content basically got acquired by Bleacher Report. So that was kind of the first example that I saw where it's like there are other, soccer is considered a niche sport in this country. There are even more niche sports out there already doing and building sites like this for their fans to come and enjoy as much content as humanly possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that was one that sparked a lot of interest for me. I will say the one that I kind of flocked to the most, and it's not even sports related. I don't know if you've heard of this. I think a lot of people have, but maybe have never really just played around with it. There's a platform out there called Pluto TV. It tends to come kind of pre-packaged, and maybe if you're like your new PlayStation that you bought, or in your new Roku stick that you bought, it's kind of one of those pre-downloaded apps that just comes with it. And what it is essentially is like just TV. It is a browser-based TV app that pulls in a bunch of content that anybody can on the internet can watch and consume for free. And I'm very familiar with like the story of the founder who built it in 2016 or 2017. He did it for, I think, what I consider to be like a similar reason to why I'm doing what I'm doing for Golz.
Mm-hmm.
It was a selfish need, he had a kid. The kid he didn't know what kind of content to put in front of his new child. And so he sourced a bunch of internet opinions from Twitter. Everybody was saying YouTube. But the issue was when he went to YouTube's built on search, right? You have to know what you're looking for. And so he found it to be not quite as easy to find the content that he wanted.
Mm-hmm.
So it sparked an idea, why isn't there a streaming app or a platform out there that in some ways behaves like TV, where you can just turn it on, flip through, some content categories, have it all be completely free to use. And this was, pre streaming wars days. And it became a blueprint that a lot of companies followed suit on. So Pluto TV, some people have heard of it, a lot of people haven't, but it was a pretty big project. It eventually got acquired by CVS for like $300+ million.
Oh wow. Okay.
Not saying Golz is going to ever become that, right? But I think that I feel like fans on this side of the world here in the States, I feel like we're underserved when it comes to content. And more importantly, the content that we do have here,
Mm-hmm.
I just don't find it that relatable. And it doesn't cover one of the biggest communities within all of soccer or football, which I believe is gaming, right?
Mm-hmm.
I meet so many FIFA content creators that I feel are pretty damn big, and they don't get the attention that I think they deserve. And their content doesn't either. And so I very much consider that soccer content, even though some people don't, and that they are very much a big part of Golz.
Mm-hmm. So part of your vision with Golz is also to cater to the US and the soccer fan base, and to really build that and provide content for those fans, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So what about like for other people in other countries? Do you think it would also appeal to them as well, or is it just specifically for the US?
That's a great question. So my vision originally was I'm going to be selfish and really cater to American fans. Like, and I would say it wasn't specifically United States. When I first had the idea, I was thinking broader, like North America, because
Okay.
there's so much connectivity between us and Canada and us and Mexico. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
you know, US and Mexico is one of the biggest rivalries out there. So I felt like that was the proper, you know, path for us. But then as I continue to have conversations with creators, with anybody who was interested in Golz, and the mission that we're on, right? Which the mission for anybody, you know, who's not familiar with our project yet, it really is not just grow the fandom of soccer here in the States, but grow the culture, grow our own culture, right? Like when I travel to other parts of the world, the culture's evident. I could feel it, breathe it, see it. When I talk to people, it's there. It bleeds into everyday life. Um, that's not the case here, right? And so I wanted to, leading up to the 2026 World Cup, I really wanted to see if Golz could have that impact of creating some kind of culture around the game on this side of the world. So that's why I was targeting, you know, almost North Americans exclusively. And then I realized that how much of our of any sports culture is impacted by other parts of the world, especially soccer and football, right? Like how much of it, how much of what we know about the game comes from other countries, other parts of the world where the game's just infinitely bigger. And so thinking, you know, that thinking on that line of thought, I just felt at some point, it's probably a few months ago, that it was going to be important for us to introduce American fans, and probably, you know, they are technically the more casual fan base, introducing them to what soccer means to other people
Yeah.
overseas.
Mm-hmm.
And so now, if you go to Golz.tv today, you will actually see creators, even pretty sizable ones who are not based here. You know, they're based in Australia or Africa or England or Wales or whatever it may be, right? I would say at this point, 25 to 30% of all creators who are on Golz right now come from other countries. And it wasn't originally by design, but I'm really glad that we made that adjustment, that we're now starting to kind of put a spotlight on things like futsal or, you know, FIFA creators that exist overseas, and kind of how they compete or how they create content around the game versus how Americans create content around the game, right? It's been really fun to watch.
Yeah, and it could work both ways, right? In the sense that we could see what other content creators are globally in other countries, but they could also see how Americans see soccer and how they create content, right?
Exactly.
Yeah,
Exactly.
yeah, for sure. So then when did this all start for you? Like when was the brainstorming process, and then when did you start putting it into action?
Oh man, brainstorming probably started like after Christmas 2021, I would
Okay.
say. And it was one of those things where the seed got planted probably with the Pluto TV story.
Mm-hmm.
I was doing a lot of research around something like related to the broader streaming market for work. And because I work, you know, in a marketing department essentially. And doing a bunch of research, and you know, I stumbled across Pluto TV and how, like, their whole story and how they went about it, and it just got me thinking on whether or not something like this exists for soccer. But I probably spent 2+ months like just trying to do market research and see if this even exists, if there's anything close to it. And you know, while there's a ton of people out there, you know, fighting for live rights, right, broadcasting rights of professional leagues, Golz isn't in that business, at least not yet, right? Maybe at some point down the road, there could be that opportunity. But I would say it took me, you know, a couple months at the start of the year just to really figure out something I really wanted to pursue. And then, you know, I would say when March, April came around, and I realized that I did want to very much pursue this and just see, you know, what this could even look and feel like. It took me about, I would say, 2 to 4 weeks of really doing kind of like hard boots on the ground work on the project itself before I realized that this is a pretty tall order for
Mm-hmm.
me to do on my own.
Yeah.
And so I just decided, like, I'm going to see if there's anybody in my personal network who is a big enough fan to understand the mission that we're on with Golz. Um, and more importantly, has the brain power in some form or fashion to help us grow this project the right way. And so now I think we have 5 people altogether working on this project, which isn't a big team by any means, but I feel like we have the 5 right people. What we're kind of missing right now are things that are a little more technical, like
Mm,
developers and designers for some of the end product that we hope to build out. But the good news is that in this day and age, some of that can be outsourced. And so,
mm,
but the core team, the team who's, kind of been with me since, the earliest days of this project, they each have their own role, whether it be community, marketing, data and analytics, whatever it may be. They're all kind of doing their own thing and helping Golz to grow in the right way.
yeah, for sure. And I'm sure you also reached out to a bunch of content creators, right?
A
Trying to get,
ton, man.
yeah.
A ton. And look, I will say, it's crazy. We have a team of 5. I think I'm the only person who has these conversations with creators, and I've probably spoken to, man, probably almost 100 by now.
Yeah.
It's been a long road. But yeah, just reaching out to creators one by one via email, just with no context around who I am, just giving them some context around the project, and just asking them to have a 30-minute conversation with me. That's how it all kind of started. And I was like, okay, I'm just going to keep doing this kind of one at a time, and we'll see how many fish I reel in, so to speak. And I would say by the time we launched with Golz, which was again very recently, the last week of September, first week of October, we had in between 30 to 40 different creators that we launched with on the platform. You being
Got
one of
it.
those.
Yeah.
So it's been a long road of just like a grind of just calling, having these calls one at a time, explaining the mission, explaining the platform, without even having really anything to show because we were still building it.
Yeah.
So yeah, man, it's kind of, it's a little irregular, I think, for some people to be like, oh, okay, well, how did he even do that? I mean,
Yeah.
it was a grind, but I think that very, very worth it, in my opinion.
Yeah, for those that don't know, I am affiliated and partnered with Goals, and my content is on there, on the Goals website. And when Jose told me about his vision, I was I really liked it, and it was like a little leap of faith where I was willing to partner up and see where this goes. So. Um, I'm willing to help in any way, shape, or form, whatever it is you want me to do, Jose. So,
I appreciate that, man.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
I mean, look, there's going to be a lot that I think we do with our creators. I think the coolest part about working with creators, especially a lot of the ones that we're working with, is that creators are so outspoken in the best ways, right? They have feedback, they have opinions. We're all fans of this game, and we all like the idea in theory and want to see it grow the right way. And so I think some founders, maybe get a little bit overwhelmed with the amount of feedback they can receive in the earliest days of a startup project.
hmm
For me, man, it's been nothing but enjoyable. Like just like to even see people resonate with a random idea I had months ago, and validate it at least a little bit. It gives me energy, man. As you can
yeah,
imagine, I still have a full-time job. I create content on the side. I'm building this in every waking moment that I have. My energy runs thin pretty quickly throughout the day.
hmm
And I would say the energy that I get from creators, the excitement, the sometimes the concern or the worry, right? Like, oh, is Goals going to be a big thing? I mean, we don't really know yet. We're hoping, but we're going to do everything in our power to grow it as best we can. So yeah, man, we'll definitely bring you in as deep as we possibly can, but that goes for every creator on the platform. We definitely want to have a strong relationship with all you guys.
yeah, for sure. And I really do hope this does grow and people catch on to it, and yeah, put out amazing content out there. Um, yeah. So what I wanted to ask was like, what is it that you're requiring as you're working with the content creators? What do you wanting to get from them?
In all honesty, man, at this stage, in the earliest days of Goals, whatever they're comfortable with sharing with us. I know that every creator out there, one is kind of has their own strategy, right? Some FIFA creators are on Twitch and they prefer to go live. They may not create a ton of on-demand content, which video on demand is just basically YouTube. So some do a great job with it. Some just don't have it as a high priority right now. And then you have other creators who are on the opposite end of the spectrum, right? They don't really go live ever. They only create YouTube videos and on-demand content.
Yeah.
And you have guys in between who do a lot of shorts and TikToks and reels and everything else. So, your content strategy and your plan, regardless of who you are, it means a lot to you. And so I always want to be respectful of that, and make sure that in these earliest days of Golz, when we're still not monetizing, right? And that's just because we're in the earliest days of a platform. That's like anybody else, YouTube, TikTok, doesn't matter who they are. When these platforms first launched, they didn't go out there and start running ads right away, right? Like they had to kind of build up the user base. Sure. So we're very much in that boat. We're trying to kind of build that up. So while we're doing that and we're not monetizing, I would say that the requirements that we have from any creator is that, one, they're focused, at least a good amount of their content's focused on soccer in some form or fashion. And that ultimately they're okay with giving us written permission to go out there and promote it as much as possible, because that's really what we're doing as far as our strategy for Golz. Even with this podcast, right? Like I didn't want to come in here and just talk about why Golz itself as a platform is really awesome. It's only awesome because of the content and the creators that exist on the platform. Mm-hmm. Without our content, without our creators, we don't have anything, right? So it's super important for us to, when we think about promoting in any way, it's always promoting our creators, promoting the content they create, and why this platform is unlike anything else that exists on the internet solely from that standpoint. So as long as they're able to give us that written permission, and as long as, they're a soccer content creator that is really focused on growth, we could probably work with them and get them on the platform easily. So that's the beauty of it, is that, we don't want to create all of these crazy in-depth requirements or a super long terms of service, because at the end of the day, we're just starting out. We want to make sure that we have a lot of control over what hits the platform, right? In terms of content, you don't want to just let, the floodgates wide open and see what comes in. That can be a recipe for disaster. But at the end of the day, we do have a lot of trust with the creators that are on the platform now. And we get new uploads every single day. It's been awesome to watch. I really didn't even know what to expect, in all honesty, the minute that we went live. I didn't know if we would have to incentivize creators to start doing it, to start uploading content, or if we were just going to see videos slowly trickle in over time. But it's been pretty steady and consistent so far. So again, only the first couple of weeks, but I'll take that as a pretty positive sign.
Yeah, for sure. What feedback have you been getting from creators, or even just your casual audience?
Yeah, one, nobody's been shy about feedback so far. Okay. So we had a good amount. I will say, from the creator standpoint, the most common piece of feedback that we get is that our platform doesn't have some of the features that YouTube has, for example. So, and what I mean by that, if I give a specific example, right now, if you were to go to watch a video on Golz.tv, you'd be able to watch it the same way you watch video content on Netflix. But it would be more of a Netflix-like experience versus YouTube, where you can like a video, you can comment on the video, you can, share the video, which you can still do on Golz. But when it comes to some of those engagement features, like likes or comments, we don't really have those built in just yet. I will say, though, with comments, those are coming as early as tomorrow. So super pumped about that. It seems like a very little addition, something that most people probably wouldn't get excited about. Mm-hmm. But considering that we launched this platform solely focused on just trying to get users to watch content, the fact that, we weren't projecting to add comments until, probably closer to Thanksgiving or Christmas, the fact that we're doing it this early, I'm so excited about. I imagine some users will notice it. There's probably a ton that just will never notice the difference. They may have thought we always had comments.
Mhm.
But I'm excited to just start giving our creators some additional feedback. That's really what that comment section is for,
Yeah.
right? Is so our creators can get more feedback on the content they create, not just how much of their content's being watched. And so yeah, I will say the majority of content that we or majority of feedback that we get from content creators is like, new features that we could be adding, new um anything new that could come to the platform, in all honesty. When it comes to users, we've had some feedback, and I will say it comes in the form of email. It'll be like, oh, and it's usually, hey, you don't have this type of content on Golz. It'd be cool if you did. And so usually what they're looking for that we don't have really much of any right now is match highlights, official match highlights. And I would say for us to get to that point, we're going to need to partner with some pretty big leagues like the MLS, the NWSL. But the good news is that like those meetings are being had, behind closed doors now. And so we're slowly starting to kind of get into the process of bringing other forms of content that we know users want to see on Golz. They're just not there yet. It's kind of a slow burn, but
Mhm.
we're very much in this for the long haul. I think you and I talked about this a little bit before the show, but I believe when people ask me how long are you giving this project, I think for us the crucial window is the next 4 years.
Mhm.
Between this upcoming World Cup in Qatar in 2022 and then
Yeah.
the 2026 World Cup in the States.
Yeah.
That's very much kind of the window of opportunity for me.
Mhm.
And so that's as much time as we're kind of giving ourselves for this project to take off.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Shout out to Footy King who's in the chat. Hope all is well. Appreciate you coming in. So to follow up on that, what content is out there or is in a Goals right now?
There's a lot, man. Everybody, what I love about it is like everybody's thumbnails and all the content categories. They range on such a wide spectrum that it's been great just to again see these videos continuously come in. But everything from podcasts, and the podcasts, even those which we have a ton of, can just have this huge range on them. Everything from MLS content to U.S. men's national team content to FIFA content to, I mean, the podcasts themselves have this, just a ton of diversity across all of those videos. But even outside of that, vlogs, jersey culture, cleat culture, FIFA content, and when it comes to FIFA, I've seen pro clubs videos, foot videos, career mode. We have trading cards and collectibles, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. I feel like I'm learning more about the creators that we have on the platform every week because I see a
Mm-hmm.
different type of video hit the platform every week.
Yeah.
And what's great about Golz so far is that, I know here at Golz, we have our own show called Box to Box, which is a podcast. And
Yeah.
you mentioned it earlier. We have that on YouTube and on Golz only. But I will say, even with that show, we upload weekly. We're maybe, 3 to 5% of all the content that exists on the platform. There's so much out there, and there's so much out there that we haven't gotten yet. Like I mentioned before, I want to get match highlights. I also want to be able to, at some point down the road, broadcast live matches if we can. That would take some pretty in-depth partnerships with other leagues that don't really have, those exclusive rights negotiated just yet. But that's something that's very much on my bucket list, in terms of growing this platform and offering more value past all of the third-party content creation that's already on the platform. So there's a lot, and we're kind of changing up the categories every week. So guys, if you've seen Golz before and you notice it looks a little bit different next week, it's because as new videos hit the platform, we kind of have to rethink what our categories look like, rethink how we're going to organize everything. But that's all part of just learning in the earliest days of any project.
So how often are content creators uploading videos to Goals?
We probably get, I would say, anywhere between like 4 and 8 videos a day.
Okay.
It's actually a good amount. I was really surprised. In
Mm-hmm.
the earliest days, it was slow. We probably got a couple a day, maybe. But and don't get me wrong, we still have a couple slow days every week. We actually thought something was broken over the weekend because it was the first weekend where we didn't see an upload. Like either Saturday or Sunday, just didn't really see an upload. But then we realized, hey, content creators have a life too, right? Maybe they're busy on the weekend. That's okay. But yeah, I would say anywhere between 4 to 8. And then, from there, we organize it the best we can. So
Okay.
we're very aware every time a video comes through, our whole team is notified. And then we make sure that depending on the video itself and how it's categorized, that we make sure that it can be highly visible. It can be promoted at the very top of the page. And that, it doesn't really clash with anything else that's already on the platform.
Do you guys have an algorithm too set up like YouTube does or other social media, or is that just manually inputted?
Oh man, I wish. No, we don't have an algorithm. I would love one. In all honesty, that would be huge. Because I think that the more we can understand what users are looking for, even before they know it, the way that TikTok does, that would be the ultimate goal, right? I think that's something that TikTok does very well. YouTube does too. The recommended page for YouTube is always strong from my perspective. But TikTok just kind of does it a little bit differently, and sometimes they're more effective. But no, right now it's all manual content curation, which it can be somewhat of a heavy lift some days. For our team, I mean, this is very much a startup. So like my wife and I guess my wife's kind of my co-founder, but she's very much like our. She organizes our catalog.
Okay.
She watches a ton of Netflix and understands what this UI is really supposed to look and feel like. And so she's heavily involved in the back end. I'm heavily involved, as are other members of the team. But every time new content hits Golz, we're just making sure that users are not seeing repetitively the same videos kind of time and time again. It feels and looks like it's fresh content. And so that just requires us to kind of go into the back end and maybe shift some things around or make certain videos a little more prominent on the platform. But it's just all part of making sure that every creator feels like they're getting the love, right?
Yeah,
that they're getting the love from our team. So we want to get to a point where we do an algorithm because it's going to make our lives a whole lot easier. But right now, we're kind of just doing things in a little bit of a labor intensive way.
Yeah, for sure. So just for you personally, like what type of content do you enjoy watching? You kind of shared it a little bit. You only stick on like YouTube and Twitch, but what do you like watching personally?
Yeah, look, let's see. If it's YouTube, I would say my content kind of that I consume stretches across probably soccer. And I'm a big Barcelona and Arsenal fan, so as you can imagine, a lot of those videos are pop up. I get a lot of shows from my favorite creators. So like if I had to pick one on the Arsenal side, it would be like Troops for Back Again with Troops, which is now owned by Barstool. I do watch a fair amount of Barstool content too. Those guys just know how to Americanize anything sports related in terms of culture. But outside of that, man, cooking content is a really big one for me too. Just out of the realm of soccer, all kinds of like cooking videos, and I don't even cook. That's kind of crazy. I don't cook at all. I don't know. I like watching people do it because I can't do it. And outside of that, yeah, I mean, I would say soccer and cooking are probably like the two biggest things that I search for on YouTube. Now on Twitch, it really kind of ranges because I for those who don't know, I work in the gaming space full time. So I work for a company called GameSite, and we do a lot of influencer marketing in the gaming space, and among other things. But I've been attached to a number of different gaming content creators for quite some time. I grew up in the Call of Duty space. So I played a lot of Call of Duty and FIFA growing up. So I watch a lot of Castro 1021 on the Twitch side of things. I watch a lot of, the big heavy hitters, Nick Merckx, Tim the Tatman, some of those guys. But I also tune into folks like GGSK and Christian XC7 and a lot of the folks who are already on the platform. That's actually how I started easily, finding creators to reach out to because I was already watching them. So with gaming content, it can be, first person shooter games, soccer games like FIFA, or just anything esports related because I'm just competitive in every sense of the word. So that's a lot of what I do and what I watch when I'm not watching live matches. At the end of the day, live matches consume the majority of like my watch time.
Mm-hmm.
It's just so easy to throw one on, even while I'm working. I could hear it in the background. I could hear the commentary. When an exciting moment happens, I can quickly turn from my desk. And so, watching as many live matches throughout the day as I possibly can, and then I just layer on top YouTube and Twitch.
Got it.
Yeah,
And
man.
for FIFA, like how often are you in watching FIFA content? And how much do you know of FIFA?
I played FIFA since FIFA 98.
Okay.
And
Have
pretty
you
much
have you
every
played every
title.
single one?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh, okay.
I can't think of any. There's no other game title that I've played more probably than FIFA.
Okay.
But I will say I haven't played like even remotely competitively since like since FIFA 16 or FIFA 17 probably.
Okay.
Just because my life has just gotten busier and busier every year. But I still buy the game every year. I bought it this time. It's end of an era, right? So I wanted to make sure I got it. But even like now, I maybe have a few hours of gameplay total for FIFA 23 so far, just
Okay.
because as you can imagine, Golz is taking up a lot of my time and whatnot.
Right. Sure.
But yeah, man, as far as FIFA content goes, I mean, everyone knows the GOAT Chew Boy, a bunch of Chew Boy for a while, watching Castro for a while. Um, there's so many people now that are playing FIFA and broadcasting FIFA that weren't doing this 3, 4, 5 years ago. And it's been awesome to watch. So, but in terms of FIFA, the gameplay itself, yeah, I'm pretty familiar. It's funny. My brother was asking me the other day, like, what is there one thing you miss from an old FIFA that we don't really have now anymore in these new ones? And I'm like, yes, back in FIFA 98, there was indoor. There was an indoor mode, and man, it was the most wonky indoor experience you ever had in your life, but it was so much fun. And I kind of miss it.
What's indoor mode? I haven't played that FIFA, so I don't know what that is.
FIFA 98, yeah, it's an N64. And when you played, all you could really play back then, because there was no online experience, was just exhibitions, right? Kickoffs. You could play you could do like career mode seasons, but if you didn't have a memory card, which is crazy to think about, right? Like everything is built in memory now, but back then you had to buy the memory card separately.
Right.
If you didn't have that, you pretty much had to grind things out all on the same day and then start over from scratch the next day. But with those exhibition matches, you could pick what stadium or what field you wanted to play at, and they had an indoor option. There was no specification on like where this court actually was, or like whose home court it would have been, but there was a court with walls and goals, and it was a venue that you could play at in an exhibition match on FIFA 98.
Uh-huh.
And so yeah, man, I did it a lot just because the ball never went out of bounds. And kind of even if you hit it high up, it would just like circle around and drop right back down. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, man, it was intense for sure.
Jeez, N64, man. That is
Yeah,
that's like when
that's
you
probably
think
the most
about it,
boomer
that's
thing
so
I've said
long
in a
ago.
while.
But that's like
Yeah,
the first console I had, man.
yeah, yeah.
N64.
I'm 31, so I'm probably aging myself a little bit.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, it was. I miss those days. Like FIFA was. Oh man, it's just a simpler time. Even up to like FIFA 03. Because even back then, the mechanics were so wonky that you could just use the same one player and cut on defenders all day long using the same one player and the same move, even if you had it on the most difficult setting, and it would work. I mean, the mechanics of FIFA back then were so just, I don't know, it was so beginner in comparison to what it
Right.
is now.
Yeah.
Whereas now, like you play FIFA 23 and like the physics of passing, for example, are, I don't know, I say difficult, but just so competitive, right? Like you really have to pick every pass, and the game's slowed way down. And that's not what FIFA used to be. FIFA
Right.
in the early 2000s was like a super fast paced game. And I loved it. It felt very arcade style.
Right. And I'm sure it was like so much simpler, like you said, right?
Yeah, man. It's just back then I was still picking Barcelona. I used to just take, Javier Saviola and just like literally do the same inward cut move through the entire defense from the
Mhm.
halfway point all the way to the goal. And
Yeah.
that you could just break those mechanics easy. And it was fun. It was fun to play. But the minute they introduced online, which I can't remember what year that it specifically was, the gameplay started changing dramatically. They had to make it more competitive,
Mm-hmm.
more realistic. And so, yeah, man, I mean, it's been a long, long journey, a long road for FIFA. And it's kind of, it's kind of sad that it's coming to an end.
Mm-hmm.
But we'll see what the next title, looks like and what it's called and how it'll be different from, these last versions.
Was 98 the first FIFA that they made?
I don't know. It could have been. It definitely could have been one of the first, for sure. And I don't know. I probably could look that up, but I just remember that specifically being the first one,
That was
the first soccer video game I ever played.
that was the one with Zidane as a cover, right? He was
I
the
think so.
face.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
so. This is really old, man. I mean, and back then
Yeah.
Zidane was like, even in his youngest days, you had guys like Roy Lassiter playing on like the U.S. men's national team and Eric Winalda and like, you know, all these players that even as a kid, I just didn't really know who they were because I was
Yeah.
still, I'll admit, I was still a pretty casual fan back then. And still just kind of, trying to learn who's who and what teams exist and how big this game actually is. Because you think about how niche soccer is today. Back in '98, I mean, there's so many Americans that didn't even know what soccer was. Like what is this game? They only play it overseas. Why are we playing it over here? It's come a long way since the late '90s.
It's interesting you bring that up because even me growing up in California, the only soccer I was really exposed to was MLS. And I
Mhm.
was like a big Galaxy fan back then when I was a kid. So I only knew like Landon Donovan or like
Like Carlos Ruiz and all
yeah,
those
Carlos
guys.
Ruiz, like Kobe Jones. I don't know. See, people don't even know who he is unless you're a Galaxy fan. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
But
yeah.
and then the only time I would have exposure to international players is when the World Cup comes, like every 4 years, and that's when like there's like Brazil, there's R9, Henri, Zidane,
Yeah.
and then you
It's
see, yeah,
I was gonna say, no, it's crazy. And those tournaments, the fans discover so many players in those tournaments
right,
specifically, that end up becoming the biggest names in the sport, right? I remember watching like the '06 World Cup, when Arjen Robben still had hair. And he was like this young talent that not many people had really heard of that just like debuted for the Netherlands and for the national team and was lighting it up and nobody had ever really paid attention to this guy before. And then he gets signed for Real Madrid shortly after that, right? So it's like
hmm
those tournaments just become like, and they really have become just this breeding ground for the next big name talents that if even if you're a casual fan, you're probably gonna if they show out, you're probably gonna hear about them at some point.
yeah, and now like to the U.S. like fans like us, we could like just watch like subscribe to a streaming network and watch all these games live. But then, back then, like let's say 15, 20 years ago, you didn't have that kind of access. So you couldn't I know I didn't get exposed to like international, European soccer.
Yeah, you really didn't. I will say the only clear cut like viewing experience and I say clear cut meaning like the image, the
hmm
picture that I'm watching on TV is very clear. Would have been like the '02 World Cup because it was a nationally, internationally broadcast event, but it came on because it was in Asia. It came on at like, 2 or 3 in the morning Central Time. So, that part of it kind of sucked. As a kid, I didn't really care because I was young. But outside of those giant events, yeah, it's just like you said, like you never got exposure to anything outside of, sports leagues that existed here. If it was European soccer or anything else, I mean, I guess we're not super proud of it, but we would just literally just have to get access to like bootleg, broadcasts for games, and the picture was always kind of a little bit wonky, and
Yeah.
you just have to make do with what you had. But that's like what my dad and I would do is like
hmm
just try to in the earliest days of the internet find something out there that allowed us to watch, and in some cases not even live. Like we would get like a bootleg recording of like a game that we really wanted to watch, and because the internet was in its infancy back then, you could avoid the scores, right? Like you could find a way to just not check the scores, so that you could watch the recording and it would feel like it was live.
hmm
We did that for years,
Yeah.
it's just, it was what it was like growing up as a soccer fan in the earliest days on this side of the world.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's very interesting. Um, so going back to FIFA, do you have any thoughts on this FIFA? Any thoughts or any feedback that you heard that you would like to
Um,
share?
I mean, the one thing that I'm not the biggest fan of, and I'm sure, some people have already, come on the show and talked about it a little bit. I just don't understand how lengthy overtakes the explosive factor of any player. I get how sometimes that happens in the real game and they're trying to translate that over to FIFA. It just happens way too often. What I'm referring to is like a lengthy center back or a defender who doesn't have the most pace, but has that lengthy factor to them kind of overtaking attackers like Mbappe, who's sprinting with the ball, right?
Mm-hmm.
You have a lengthy defender who's even with, even if the attacker were to get a head start, is catching up to them, making up the ground, and winning that tackle. I think for me, man, that's probably the most mind-numbing part of FIFA is just trying to understand which players are really going to, I don't know, I guess give my attack the best edge it possibly can have.
Mm-hmm.
Because at the end of the day, like with FIFA 22, pace was everything. The speed at which you move the ball was everything. And now I have to be very particular with my passing, and I really can't, utilize my attacker's speed the way that I used to. So, that's probably me just being a casual, though. I'm sure there are some competitive players out there who've completely figured it out and maybe worked their way through it, and know how to build a team accordingly now.
Yeah.
I'm just still so new in the game that I got to figure that part of it out. So, but I mean, mechanically speaking, that's like the most annoying for me right now. And I will say drafts aren't fun yet either. In Ultimate Team, I was a big drafts player last year, and
Yeah.
I could never understand why at times they would nerf drafts. They would kind of hit the reset button on them, and the cards you were packing were just very mediocre and mid. Um, that's kind of how it feels right now because the game is just starting. But I imagine as more promos come out, drafts will be a whole lot more fun. And, a little bit later in the year, it's something I keep flocking to. But for right now, I'm still just trying to get my feet wet.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it seems like well, everybody's been saying like it's a very much slower game than I guess what it was last year, and you can't pace abuse as much, and it's just less arcadey, so you can't really like spam skill moves like as fast as you want,
Yeah.
and it just seems like they're making the game more realistic, as they say. Yeah.
Yeah. I think what they could do, I think what they have now where you can't abuse pace the way you used to. I'm fine with that. I think what I would like to see more of is just fluidity with dribbling, right? Like players' abilities to accept a pass and maybe feint one way and move the ball the other. That's something that I think that's the flair that makes midfielders attractive to watch in real life. And I would love the ability to, even with players who don't have the pace, there are plenty of midfielders who don't have pace, but their ball skill is real, right? Like Marco Verratti from PSG. The ball skill is there, their touch is there, the dribbling and how they, as an individual, work, break down certain midfields on their own is 100% there, but it doesn't translate to FIFA for whatever reason. And so we're in the earliest days of the game. I'm hopeful that we'll see some updates that allow midfielders and how they dribble to just be a little more realistic, because I think that would do a really good job of offsetting the issues with pace. And the pace is only an issue because we're so used to FIFA 22, but and probably 21 for that matter. But I think that we'll get used to that aspect. It would just make it a whole lot more fun to play if the dribbling didn't feel so stiff, if it didn't feel like a turn would take half a day to make or anything along those lines. I want that part to be a little more fluid.
Yeah, for sure. They just did a patch today, so we'll see. Yeah, they did a patch on the game, so we'll see how people respond to that.
Fingers crossed. Yeah, I mean, we'll see. it's so hard to, and again, this is not like me, dumping on EA. I think it's so hard to get excited sometimes about moves that EA makes, because everyone always thinks that like EA is just doing whatever it takes to further monetize users as they typically do. But hopefully, with this being the last FIFA, they're just actually taking feedback into consideration from the community and then going out there and making changes that everybody wants us to see make, or at least to balance some of the broken aspects of this game. So
Yeah.
patches are always good. Let's just hope it doesn't break something else.
The thing with patches is like the players always have to make adjustments because they're gonna take away some meta or they're gonna introduce a new meta. But you gotta be able to adjust and find a way to still play well with all these patches. Yeah.
I agree, man. The good news too, like I think what's crazy with me and my FIFA journey over these years. I mean, I've been playing the game for 20 plus years. It has been. I used to be insanely competitive about this game, like FIFA 11, FIFA. I mean, it's crazy to say that like that long ago, but like like very much as early as possible. I was super competitive about this game. The minute that online play was available, and now that I'm older and have more responsibilities, and I'm honestly just working so much, I find myself coming to FIFA as almost a way to just completely distract myself. And it starts with online play, but then I get so frustrated sometimes. I'm just like, all right, I'm gonna go play career mode. And career mode itself has actually been kind of a vibe, man. Like it's over the last couple seasons, it's become that way for me, almost like just a way to kind of decompress after the day. And now, I mean, I'm still getting my feet wet with FIFA 23's career mode. And there's new things you could do with it. But ultimately, it's just kind of a slowed down version of FIFA that I've really come to appreciate. So who knows, man? Maybe that's just me sound like an old person, but I really think that career mode, may continue to play just a bigger part of my FIFA experience.
No, there's definitely a lot of people that do like career mode and they do like watching that type of content. So it's definitely out there. Yeah.
It's crazy. Actually, there's some really great career mode content. Like I think of A9 Skills, who does stuff for complexity. Like his content for career mode is actually pretty good. Like him, anybody who does like these story driven, storylines around career mode where they're trying to fix their favorite clubs or teams and by taking them over as managers and seeing what they do. Some of that stuff's actually pretty enjoyable to watch. So I think if anybody out there does create that content, I mean, we definitely want to get more on goals, but personally, I just want to see more of it out there. I think it's something that more people are watching than ever before.
Yeah, I've definitely tried it out, but personally for me, it doesn't appeal to me. It's hard to be excited about it when I've played Ultimate Team and it's so sweaty. That brings out like the competitive side of me. So when I go to career mode, there's like a lack of that. So I can't get excited and spend my time doing career mode when like all the fun and sweat is like in Ultimate Team.
I feel you on that 100%, man. And I used to be the exact same way. I think the beauty of FIFA is that doesn't matter what you want to do, right? Maybe you're and this even just within Ultimate Team, maybe you're a competitor and you want to sweat and that's what you want to do. Maybe you're solely a trader on FIFA and that's all you care about is the trading aspect of Ultimate Team. Maybe all you do is online drafts. Maybe you only do pro clubs, career mode, whatever. The game, regardless of how it plays and how at times it feels broken, I think what I've always been impressed by from FIFA standpoint is that it has something for just about any fan.
Yeah.
If doesn't matter what style of play you have or what you enjoy about the game, you could probably turn it on and find something within the game that appeals to you. Even last year with like Volta, I don't know how many players actually played Volta, but I know some did, and it's enjoyable for them. So it really wasn't my cup of tea, but I can understand how someone else would find it appealing. So that's kind of the point that I'm making is that like, everyone's got their own thing, but it is cool to see that FIFA's trying to offer as much as it possibly can to fans. Hopefully it keeps that going, even if it's not necessarily called FIFA anymore.
Right. Yeah, it's fascinating to see just within the game. There's so many modes that people are into, and they just kind of dive into whatever they feel like they're interested in. Yeah.
Seriously, man. Yeah. And interestingly enough, I know with FIFA, I don't know how many players actually branch out into other games too. I would actually be really curious for that. Like how many try things like eFootball or Football Manager. I don't know. Have you tried any other games outside of FIFA?
I personally haven't, but I know there's a lot of like content creators out there that do dabble with other football games.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there's so much on the market now. That's the beauty of it, right? Is like you can go out there and in some ways, some of these games kind of copy each other. Not all the time, but it does happen, right? So I know like eFootball kind of has its own version of Ultimate Team with
Yeah.
cards and whatnot. So it's been really fun to watch all these kind of games pop up out of the woodwork and all the content that's come from those games. So I'm really hoping that the promos that we get in Ultimate Team this year are just sweet. I do know that some people have been critical of EA with some of the I don't know how to put this, but like with some of the things that they've released lately, right? Whether it's like a little mistake here and there, or they accidentally released a pack or a promo they weren't supposed to, or whatever it may be. Hopefully those things get corrected. But ultimately, I am excited for what's going to come for the remainder of the season. I'm really hoping that they piggyback on a lot of the results or the activity that we see in real life
Mm-hmm.
with these teams and with these clubs, because that's when it gets really fun.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting to see also when EA does cut ties with FIFA, because I heard FIFA will try to make their own game, and then EA has their own game, so it'll be interesting like how that's all gonna work out.
Yeah, I mean, I think the licensing issue that has kind of come out. I wonder how deep that actually goes, because I know,
Mm-hmm.
for example, like here in America with the NFL, there are like other games and projects in the video games industry that are coming out and they're using NFL players' IP, right? So
Mm-hmm.
the actual names of the players versus the teams they play for. And that's kind of how they're working around that issue, is that they can still reference players by name.
Okay.
Um, I think that might be the route that EA goes. I'm not sure how those licensing agreements and relationships really work.
Yeah.
But if FIFA's pulled out, I don't know if FIFA has only the IP for the clubs, or if it's for literally everything: clubs, players, badges, leagues, whatever it may be. I wonder how deep that really runs. But yeah, I could totally see EA just saying, look, we already have the player base. We're going to continue to run this thing and just call it EA Sports FC, which I think was like the first rumored name. So yeah, we'll find out. But I mean, if Player Evolution Soccer, which is now eFootball, if that could survive as long as it did, I'm sure EA's title can still kind of hang on for as long as it needs to.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how that all plays out.
Yeah,
Um,
I agree.
yeah. So the last thing, I want to talk to you about in this podcast before we end it is actually the World Cup. For the upcoming World Cup,
Yep.
it's crazy. It's only like a month away. It's a month
I mean, yeah,
away.
I think it's like less
Yeah.
than 40 days, right?
Well, do you know the exact date when it starts?
Yes.
Is it
I
on
think
the 11th
I believe
of November, which
so.
is
Yeah.
like a month?
Let's see. It might be a little bit later.
Oh, it
Oh
might
no,
be
you're right.
later.
You're right. It's about a month.
Okay. Yeah, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
it's coming up quick.
It is. It is. So what I wanted to ask was like your thoughts on the World Cup. Who are you rooting for? Who do you think's gonna win? Any thoughts on that?
Oh man, who I'm rooting for is very far apart from who I think is going to win.
Okay.
But with that said, I am Mexican American, and so that's always been how I've leaned into any major competition. I find myself rooting for both Mexico and the United States equally, almost,
Mm-hmm.
because I do have even family located on both sides,
Yeah.
and so both countries mean a lot to me. But with that said, I've been let down enough in my my 31 years as a human to realize that, like, I'm realistic. I'm a pragmatic thinker. I don't see either one of those teams really even getting past like round of 16 or quarterfinals. Like, I don't think that either of those teams is in really good form. And who knows? Like, I know for the U.S. specifically, I've been very critical of them on box to box, but they may not even get out of the group stage. I mean, we'll see. It's just they don't look good, and Mexico's not much further along. So, who do I think could win the World Cup? I think this could be the World Cup that mirrors some of the results that we're seeing in club soccer and club football right now. What I mean by that is modern football for me, the way that I pay attention to it, it feels like dark horses are becoming more prominent. That the upsets that we didn't used to see back then, when only the top clubs in the world would dominate, or the top countries in the world would dominate, um, you don't see quite as much of that anymore, right? In 2018 World Cup, for example, um, you know, seeing Germany crash out the way that they did, not even making it past the group stage after winning the 2014 World Cup. I think we'll see more of that. And for me, it feels very similar to like watching the Champions League today, when we're probably going to see guys like Barcelona, Atletico Madrid, Juventus, and a bunch of other very historically big clubs, fall out of Champions League into the Europa League. I think it's going to be like that, where a couple teams just take us by surprise. So if I had to pick someone that I really think would make a lot of waves, right before, about 6 months ago, I would have said someone like England, but they're in shambles right now too. So probably I want to feel really good about Belgium, because their golden generation is pretty much done and they still have anything to show for it. So hopefully somebody like Belgium. If not, though, I think it'd be really cool to see another Asian team make a big run, like back in 02, where Korea made it to like the semifinals or something.
Right.
I think seeing Japan, because they're top 25 in the world, seeing them cross into the quarterfinals, the semifinals would be awesome. But yeah, I going in, I really have no real expectations, other than I'm probably going to be disappointed by the teams that I'm supporting. But I'll still show up full form. I'll be yelling. I'll be loud. And this only happens once every 4 years. So regardless of when the time, what time the games actually come on, I'll be up 4 a.m, 5 a.m. This only happens once every 4 years. So I'm locked and loaded for that tournament.
Yeah, for sure. No, definitely excited. Every 4 years when the World Cup comes, and um, yeah, man, I always like the underdog teams pulling the upsets. That's what makes the competition, a lot of these tournaments, fun. Is like these favorited teams. Like imagine just Brazil just losing in the quarters, or not even making it to the group stage.
That'd be crazy.
Yeah.
I think like I said, when Germany lost, last 4 years, or 4 years ago, I mean, it was very much like just eye opening. I think for most fans, I think for casual fans, it was just like, oh, okay, a big powerhouse team that we know just didn't make it. But if you watch these games, and if you know the players because you follow their club teams and how big these guys actually are, it was a huge statement to see them not advance out of the groups. So. And I think as a Barca, my inner Barca fan also is probably like, I would love to see Argentina win it, because it'd be great to see Messi sail off in the sunset, right? And just be like, all right, he did it. He achieved everything. There's nothing for him to go after in his career, and maybe he can call it. But equally, as good of a chance as Argentina has, I'm not, a Cristiano Ronaldo hater at all. It's just I don't see Portugal having the same type of chance. They've kind of been up and down. I don't really know how to feel about them just yet. So who knows? It's probably going to be someone like France or Brazil. But if a dark horse did win it, someone that we just didn't expect at all, man, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, that would. I got a couple teams that I would want Argentina to win it too. I think they have a really good chance of winning it. They got a really good team. I like Portugal too. I would like to see like an Argentina Portugal in the final, because that would be crazy.
Man. That is the dream final.
Yeah.
They would break the internet, I think.
It would. That would set the record of like the most viewed sporting event ever.
100%. Yeah, to see that. I've always wanted to see either that World Cup final, Ronaldo versus Messi, or on the other side, just that Champions League final. And we kind of have had some chances over the years to see that, but either way, I just feel like it's what this generation of fans deserves, because it would be a massive moment.
Yeah, because for them it's like they're almost done. This is the end of their era, and this is their last World Cup. So I would just like to see one of them win it, preferably Messi.
Preferably Messi.
Yeah.
Ronaldo had a real shot at it back in was it the 06 World Cup when they made it to the semis?
Right.
That and he was still young. Like
Yeah.
that would have been like a fantastic trophy for him to have. And I was very much cheering for early days Ronaldo to win that. Um, Back when he still had like Luis Figo on that team and he was
Right.
captaining Portugal. But things happen and they won third place. It is what it is. But yeah, I'm right there with you, man. I think it'd be so cool to see either one of them win it and really kind of maybe that is like the cementing of who the GOAT is, although people can have that argument all day.
Yeah.
But I really do think that one of them deserves to win it.
Yeah, for sure. And Messi had his chance too in 2014.
I
But
still blame
yeah.
Higuain for that, but but yeah, but yeah, God, that final. You know what's crazy? On the other side of that, not just to be solely an Argentina fan, I've always said that if Messi had scored the goal that Mario Götze scored in overtime for Germany in that World Cup final, um, that it would have broken the internet. That he, but basically, probably would have never had to pay for really anything ever again, just because I think it would have been one of the craziest moments ever and celebrated that way.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, because everybody, like half the world was cheering for Messi, people consider like Götze sometimes to be lucky to have been in the right position to score that goal or anything else. And I just think that that's like no. I mean, I think Götze made a fantastic run, great hit with his weak foot on the bounce and on the slide to score a fantastic goal in extra time in the World Cup final. So I hope Messi can have one of those moments, and I really think he will, because I think in the last couple of World Cups, Argentina has minus the final that they went to,
Yeah.
um, has kind of sometimes been unimpressive. So hopefully this is his last big hurrah.
Yeah, for sure. So we'll see how that plays out. I'm excited to watch. So it's gonna be a lot of good football slash soccer to watch in the winter. So
Agreed, man. I'm
it'll,
pumped.
it'll be good times, man. So yeah, it's been a little over an hour now. We could call it here. Appreciate you coming here, Jose. Where could people find goals, YouTube, social media, as well as your own personal social media?
Yeah, absolutely. So for goals specifically, guys, it's just about every single platform out there. It's goals underscore TV, GOLZ underscore TV. And it just happens to be that way because finding goals.tv was a little more impossible. For my personal socials, it's just about all of them as well. It's Bromigo, and Bromigo is my gamer tag. It's been that way for at least a decade plus, and I'm sticking with it. But that's Bromigo. So it's Bromigo is my personal. If you want to follow me, I talk footy, soccer all day, every day. I love talking shit about it, and it's become a place where I meet so many friends around the game. So if you guys want to make new friends, please hit me up. But otherwise, check out Goals, and I really appreciate it.
Fantastic. Well, it was a pleasure having you here and having this chat. And yeah, wish you all the success with goals. And obviously, we're going to be working together on that. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely, man. Thank you for having me. Really appreciate it.
And for everybody else, appreciate you guys tuning in. Hope to see you